And good evening, fellow writers and travellers into the space-time continuum, and welcome to Thursdays. I have made a big mistake. On Saturday I forgot, no, was it Saturday? Yeah, Saturday I think I forgot to put my hat on. Today I've put on the wrong shirt. My shirt is, alas, green, which means I'm a sort of pan-dimensional being. Whose normal form would probably be a small white mouse, but today I'm in human form. But I am slightly out of phase with the rest of the universe, so apologies. I'm sort of phasing in and out of existence across the multiverse. So schoolboy error, having a green shirt when there's a green screen, but it's not quite the same shade of green, you see. But it's close enough that I'm sort of a bit ephemeral this evening. I will try to be not ephemeral in the way I talk, but there we go. Never mind. Welcome one and welcome all to the writing stream, where in due course we will be discussing Philip K. Dick's rather good novel, actually, Second Variety, is a short story, so we'll get on to that. Before we do that, of course, stream tradition demands that that we do the thing, because the thing is the thing and the thing must be done, for reasons which nobody knows. But there we are. Never mind. What we do here, for those of you who are new, if there is anybody new out there to the stream, is we, for some strange reason, I go through everybody who has posted a comment in the stream at this point at the stream. There's a sort of cut-off when I start the thing, because, you know, obviously the thing is the thing. And I just read the names out that makes any comments. So, because we do, right? It's just a stream tradition. It's one of those things. It's good luck. Otherwise, if we don't do it, bad things would happen. So here we go. Right, who's first in the chat? Mad Monk Soft is first in the chat. Congratulations, Mad Monk Soft, and poised as ever he is on Wikipedia, which is always very good, because occasionally we need his services when we're trying to figure out things. And Mad Monk Soft always jumps in. The Harkonnens are here. As ever, ready to evade Arrakis. The invasion of Arrakis has been quite a long-winded affair, it has to be said. I don't think the Harkonnens have made a great deal of progress. But one of these days, perhaps they will. Gigi's here. He's actually read the story. Congratulations. Well done. The Arrakises are here, fighting off the invasion of the Harkonnens as ever. Presumably being relatively successful, because they have failed to be invaded by the Harkonnens. Evening, Druid, I'm loving your comments on your retro stream about me. That's okay, Arrakis. It's always lovely to see you here. Commander Hubris as well. Good to see you. Wintermute GB is here, of course. Well, of course he is. Wintermute GB just is. He just is, of course. Dr. MC Tool is here as well. Good to see you. Commander Sea Dweller is here with the Womble army in tow, which is always good. Just in case we need backup from a bunch of small furry creatures, because they're extremely useful. Big 39 GT is here as well. Glenn Frank is here as well. Glenn is our stalwart of the streamers here, been for many years. Thank you for popping in, Glenn. Good to see you. First time chat. Goodness me, Story1136, hello to you as well. What did it do to Raxler boy? Well, you never know. Maybe one day we'll find out. Commander Tragic Blue 21 is here as well. What else do we have going down the stream? Freaky Deaky Dude is here as well. Lucky Luigi is here. I think we're almost there. The Wobbles, yay! Anyway, so welcome one and welcome all to the writing stream. Now, we will, of course, eventually get round to talking about the book. There is an inevitability, however, of some waffleage that goes on prior to the serious business of poking a little bit of critical fun at sci-fi authors of times long past. Because many of us on this stream are writers. Many of us, all of us are readers. Some of us are writers. Some of us even collaborated quite a while ago now on putting a book together, which is all good fun. So we sort of swap. There is, dare I say, a small amount of expertise on the stream. So if you do have any generic writing questions, you might even be lucky to get an answer to them if you want to pose them. But hey, there we go. And the cost of Father Wobbles. So there's a book. What book? You gave me the waffles. So I've achieved a thing today. I have achieved a writing thing today, even more precisely. I have finished, I think, the 4th draft of my latest book. Bam, bam, bam. I'm quite pleased with myself today. I had 4 proofreaders going through my novel. And that's always an interesting thing to me, is that the 4 proofreaders, I mean, whilst they did overlap in the things that they found, right, each of them found different errors. I'm always a bit freaked out by that, because they're all really quite competent people, okay, and they all find different stuff, and they do find some of the same things, but each one has found unique errors, which presumably just it's weird. So after 4 proofreaders have gone through it, you'd have thought they would have zapped virtually everything, but no, I found one today. It's really, really weird how proofreading is one of those kind of things that I don't think you could ever complete, almost. I mean, theoretically you could complete it, because there's obviously a finite number of words. There always seems to be another error that found in there. One of my eldest son's girlfriend, who's a lovely young lady called Rebecca, was reading Shadewood 1, which is one of my earlier books, the other day, and she said, "It's really good, but I found a spelling mistake." You said, "You what?" Ah, dear. So it's just like not good. For foolproof proofreaders, try saying that fast. Yes, that's the problem. I gave a copy of 9 Streams of Consciousness. That's Glenn, the book that we all collaborated on several years ago, to a friend who's into sci-fi, and he's given me several books to read. He's been really liking it. I guess he can only give it away, not sell it. Ah, well, I mean, it's good. It's good. I'm glad that other people are still reading things, which is excellent. Have I tried an AI proofreading? Well, see, I'm a bit, I don't know this AI business, because on one hand, it says, well, it's just another type of technology, right? So, do you mind giving your stuff to a spell checker? Well, not really. Do I mind giving it to an AI? Well, the problem with AI, of course, is it's online. And this is probably an entire topic for a stream in the future, isn't it? This whole AI business. I've mucked about with it a little bit. I've stuck bits of my text into it and sort of to see what it thinks. I haven't used it for proofreading. I didn't even know it could do that. But yeah, I'm kind of shying away from it, because of course you don't know where the stuff you're putting into the AI tool is actually ending up, and I don't want to train an AI tool into well, I can now write a Drew Wager novel. This is excellent, because that might not be all that useful for me. So what I did try is I took an old short story that I had, and I basically took the first scene, and then I said to the AI, I said, write me a story, write me the next scene in this story in the same style as the author. I didn't even say who I was, and it tried, and it was rubbish. It was quite good. So I was quite pleased that it was rubbish. It was generically bad. So yeah, that was okay. So I'm not convinced there's an immediate threat to writers from AI, but of course that technology is going to advance rather fast. So nobody else is bonkers enough to write a Drew Wager novel. That's very, very true. So I'm not dumping big quantities of my books into an AI tool, because I just don't know where the data might be going. And training an AI tool on this is a really excellent example of writing. Might not be all that good a career move, might it? So we'll see. To be honest, I think AI and a bit of more discussion, and maybe trying out one of these chat things, these GPT things online with some inputs, would be quite interesting to try. Maybe we could do a whole stream about that at some point. But there we go. So AI is the enemy more so than Russia. Well, Russia, of course, comes up in our book today, which is going to be quite interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I'll have a think about it. But no, I'm not. I'm almost at the, because I'm getting old. I'm becoming more and more of a technophobe as I get older, right? Because I was like, don't really want to install that app at all. No, can't I just have can't you print that out for me? Can I have a proper receipt? No, I don't want to give you my email address. All that sort of stuff. So AI seems to be yet another like a ratcheting up of the entire end of the world scenario where everything takes over and goes horribly wrong. So I don't know. No, I don't know. I must admit, I'm looking at it in my kind of with my career eyes on, going kind of. I'm glad I'm not starting out now. It's stuff like this that makes you feel old. I think it's like, really, I've got to totally adjust my entire worldview because now a computer can do that for me. It's like on one half of it, it's quite exciting. On the other half of it, it's like I'm kind of glad I'm near the tail end of my career now. £10 says we know human life left on this planet in 25 years. When are you hoping to collect that bet, Commander Hope Hubris? They said that about the Chinese and Japanese cars at one point. Well, I suppose that's true, isn't it? And of course, the British car industry is, well, it isn't anymore. So I haven't tried Galley Slave. Still waiting for Drew to tell us. No, I missed that. Galley Slave. No, I haven't read that. Okay, so I need to look that one up. Is that so? That's what, an AI a story about an AI who just does proofreading. 25 years plus to collect. I'll be half a mile underground. Well, I mean, the thing is, this AI stuff is interesting because, of course, it's the stuff I've read at least. I mean, there's one guy in Google who apparently reckoned it was sentient, which seems to be a little bit mad, because at the moment it's only a language processing thing. I mean, it can process language. It just doesn't mean it necessarily is comprehending what it's reading. Because the examples I've tried, I've basically given it bits of text, and I thought, I'll write something that I don't mind it having, and I wrote something to sort of deliberately try and trip it up, because I'm like that. And it fell for a hook, line and sinker. So I basically did a scene where I said, which of these characters is lying? And it can't do it. It can't work out. It can't work out which character is lying. Whereas a human can instantly figure out, whether somebody's being deceptive or not. And certainly the Chat GPT thing. I think it was whatever the version is that's free. Presumably it's not the super advanced one. Chat GPT 3, I think it is. It was rubbish at working out character motivations. It couldn't figure it out at all. So, so I'm not that impressed yet with it. Some humans could tell he's like, but it's the sort of thing you put in a book where, okay, that guy's definitely shifty. He's got some sort of agenda. There's something going on, which is relatively easy to write as a writer. ChatGPT was totally out of its depth trying to figure out the motivations of the character. So I don't. And if it can't figure that out, it can't write good dialogue, and it can't write good characters, can it? So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But that's definitely a chat for you. We should try it live, of course, because I can do that. So maybe we'll do that in a future stream. We'll have a bit of an AI muck about with AI. I'll have to write some bits of prose, some small paragraphs, and go on then. Right, let's see if we can defeat ChatGPT as a writer. I think that would be quite good. So Galley Slave has a wonderful closing paragraph by an anti-AI person who laments the loss of human creativity if AI starts writing for us. Well, this is the only thing that bothers me a bit about it. This is a slightly serious waffle that we're going right at the moment. Normally it's stupidity and inanity, but today they were doing serious waffling. Have I seen the film Ex Machina about someone trying to test the... Yes, I have. I did enjoy that film. Although I thought the ending was a bit naff, where the robot basically goes around just gonna murder the humans and wander off into the wide world. Spoilers, sorry. Wait for the next version of ChatGPT. Yes, so I'm aware there's a GPT version 4, which I think is a paid for version at the moment. But my concern is that whilst an AI, and I think Sea Dweller's referring to the same sort of thing with music, whilst an AI can do it, will it generate anything actually original, or is it just rehashing everything that's going on? My problem with that is that there's an awful lot of humans who make a stack load of cash just reiterating things that have already been done before. And to be fair, there's an awful lot of trashy, crappy novels on Amazon, etc., 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 which do very, very well. So are people going to be discriminatory enough to read non-AI works when the AI works will be able to probably churn out fairly acceptable generic stories of reasonable quality in fairly short order, which will keep maybe 80-90% of people satisfied. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, am I going to have to stick a badge on my website saying no AI was used in the generation of this book? And AI has access to everything, of course, or at least potentially has access to everything. So, it could reference things that just a single individual human is just never going to have the chance to be able to digest. So, write me an original novel where the heroine is this and the hero is that, and roughly this happens in the middle, and da 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 da. Yeah, it'll probably be able to do something like that before too long. Barbara Cotland would have been spared. That's right. All those sort of generic kind of romance novel just keep changing the thing. And that's, I think, Glenn, you've hit the nail on the head. Is, will consumers lower their standards? I fear that that's actually more of a problem. It's not so much the AIs are going to supplant the writers directly on bounds of creativity, but more that the AI will make the creation of a generically not too bad novel so cheap that there'll be no point, at least there'll be no financial point to trying to write a novel. Because I mean, how long does it take me to write a novel, for example? It takes me about a year to create a novel, which is about, let's say, 100,000 words for the sake of argument, right? And an AI will be able to do that in seconds. And if it could do it to 50, 60, 70% of the quality that I can produce, boom, that's like, it's like, what can you do? Because nothing you can do against that, is there? Fast food, airport novels versus handmade human luxury. I think it, if it becomes a bespoke craftsmanship. Oh, this is a book that's actually written by a real human. Oh, really? That's quite unusual nowadays. Maybe there'll be like a boutique corner of the market left for some people, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. We'll have to find out. But anyway, I think that's a good idea for an upcoming stream. Let's not do it now because I'd have to do some prep. But it's a good suggestion maybe for an upcoming stream. Maybe I'll do that next week. Get an AI. Let's play around with what AI can and can't do at this point in time, and have to come back and have a look at it again. But anyway, let's move swiftly on, my friends, to a book that definitely wasn't written by AI, but oddly enough, it kind of is about AI. Slightly ironic, and I have to say this was a damn good story. Okay, I was well impressed by this. So this is a Philip K. Dick novel, which dates from, and this is pretty amazing, really. It dates from 1953. Short story. So it's not a book per se. I don't know how long it is. It's not that long. I mean, I read it in a couple of hours. I think total elapsed time, 2 sittings basically for me. One with a cup of tea and one with a bag of strawberry bonbons, which was perfect. That's the way to read a book, by the way. The only thing I was a bit annoyed about in this version is under the title, which, the other thing about these covers is they have absolutely nothing to do with the book or whatsoever. So this title sort of gives you the impression, well, it's sort of maybe the moon with a sort of fire sprite kind of a dude holding the earth in his hands. It's got nothing. It's got nothing to do with the story whatsoever. So I don't know. Give me the tea, says Commander Hope. Well, tea. I mean, strawberry bonbons. The moon is in the story. It is. That's about the only thing I can think. Look at this. It's a very, very curious cover. I know it's actually. This is the cover of a magazine, or at least it's possibly amalgamation of a whole bunch of stories, because it does say in this issue, Q for Quiet by T.L. Shepherd. So maybe this cover relates to that story rather than the one by Philip K. Dick. But who knows? It's difficult today. But it doesn't have anything. I think it's only the cover of the publication, so yeah, it's not meant to. So we'll kind of let it off. None of the cover art so far has been anything to do with the story anyway. Seems to be a thing with 1950s stuff, but there we go. Now, the only thing that annoyed me a little bit here, I mean, the slight spoilers in this image, I feel. It's like, really? Okay, so that tells you something, basically something about what's going on. And then even worse, actually, this one here. Yeah. So second variety by Philip K. Dick, illustrated by Ebel. Well, great, good stuff. This, it's like, who decided to stick this in here? The claws were bad enough in the first place, nasty crawling little death robots, but when they began to imitate their creators, it was time for the human race to make peace if it could. Spoilers! It's like, that's worse than the Star Wars trailer, where all the good bits show up in the trailer. It's just like, stop it! Just let me read it. So try and ignore that. He says, having quoted it out loud on the stream. So yes, it's sort of 1950s version of clickbait, isn't it? It's kind of like drag you in and hopefully give it. So anyway, I ignored that because the title is nicely vague. It doesn't really tell you anything, which was quite good. So and then I was thinking, okay, so this is written in 1950, and it starts off with a Russian soldier, which is, you know, given the current situation in Ukraine, is quite prescient. But anyway, so there's a Russian soldier, okay, making his way up a hillside, glancing around him, licking his dry lips, his face set. Okay, so quite nervous. So that, you know, so, and you're assuming it's a soldier, therefore it's some kind of war zone. From time to time, he reached up a glove hand and wiped perspiration from his neck, pushing down his coat. So that, you know, this was encouraging to me, because the moment I read that, I thought, oh, good. Mr. Dick has read Drew Wager's writing advice on Show Don't Tell. So this is good man. He's done this well. So that's probably a good example of showing, not telling. So that's good. So, you know, this guy is nervous. He's kind of wary, right? And so that's all kind of good. Anyway, so I had missed this bit. Fortunately, it didn't show up when I read it. I think I had the ebook version. So I was like, okay, well, the Russian soldier, right? So Eric turned to Corporal Leone. Wanted more can I of him? He adjusted the view sight so the Russian's features squarely filled the glass, the lines cutting across his hard sober features. So it looks like some kind of gun sight. Okay, so I've already got the image of a couple of dudes, and I don't know what country they're from at this point in time, because Eric and Leone are not necessarily particular. I mean, Eric is a sort of is actually a Scandinavian name, so not quite sure where they're from. But anyway, and you know, 1953 of course is Cold War, so you're kind of thinking, well, it's probably going to be Americans versus Russians, but we don't know that yet, so we'll wait and see. The Russian was close, moving rapidly, almost running. Don't fire, wait. I don't think we're needed. It's like, okay, so is somebody else going to shoot him? Anyway, the Russian increases his pace. He's uneasy. He knew something was wrong. Don't worry, he won't get here, says Leone. They'll take care of him. Are you sure he's damn far? They hang around close to the bunker. He's getting to the bad part. Get set. And anyway, so the Russian's looking around. He's got some field glasses, or we'd call them binoculars in the UK. I don't know. Field glasses is possibly an American phrase. I don't know field glasses. So there we go. Anyway, he's looking right at us, as Eric said. Anyway, so gap. Russian came on. They could see his eyes. He needed a shave. One bony cheek was a square of tape showing blue at the edge. A fungoid spot. Now I was like, okay, so what's all that about then? That gives you the sense that everything isn't quite as you might expect. So why has he got a fungoid spot? His coat's muddy and torn. One glove was missing. Here one comes though. And then everything, all kind of weirdness starts to happen, which is quite good. Across the ground, something small and metallic came, flashing in the dull sunlight of midday, a metal sphere. It raced up the hill after the Russian, its treads flying, so it's kind of motorised kind of thing. It was small, one of the baby ones. Its claws were out, two razor projections spinning in a blur of white steel. The Russian heard it, and he turned instantly, firing, and the sphere dissolved into particles. But already a second had emerged and was following the first. So a third sphere leaped up the Russian's leg, clicking and whirring, and it jumped to his shoulder, the spinning blades disappearing into the Russian's throat. So I was like, ugh, nice. Ugh. And then Eric relaxed. Well, that's that. So presumably the Russian's dead. He's been decapitated by a kind of weird motorised sphere with spinning blades. God, those damn things give me the creeps. Sometimes I think we were better off before. Okay, so what this is all. So what's good about this is within two quite short scenes, Philip has set up, okay, this is what feels initially like a kind of almost World War II sort of scene, and then suddenly there's this quite high technology going on, and you're kind of like, well, what's the backstory here? Because these guys know what these things are. So yeah, we all know Terminator. It's got that sort of vibe, hasn't it? But this is way before that. And it doesn't say how big these spheres are. It just says it was small, one of the baby ones. Anyway, now here's the interesting thing: if we hadn't invented them, they would have. I wonder why a Russian would come all this way alone. I didn't see anyone covering him. And then Lieutenant Scott comes slipping up the tunnel into the bunker. What happened? Something entered the screen. Okay, field glasses developed by a German for the American market in 1840. Okay, there we go. And Eric brought the view screen around. Okay, so we've got view screens. So my question at this point was to myself was where is this set? Where what's going on? This Terminator wasn't based on this story though. That's a whole different court case. Which shows that obviously there isn't always an original idea. Sometimes it's just been done before, hasn't it? Anyway, so the view screen allows them to see it, and they can see numerous metal spheres crawling over the prostate body, dull metal globes clicking and whirring, soaring up the Russian into small paths to be carried away. Ew. Okay. They come like flies, not much game for them anymore. Okay, so this sort of feels like some sort of quite end game battle situation. Wonder why he was out there. They must know we have claws all around. A larger robot now joins the smaller ones, and it was directing operations. A long blunt tube were projecting eyepieces. There was not much left of the soldier. What remained was being brought down the hillside by the host of claws. Sir, Leon said, if it's all right, I'd like to go out there and take a look at him. Why? Maybe he gave me something. All right, but be careful. I have my tab. Leon patted the metal bandit's wrist. I'll be out of bounds. Okay, so he's got some sort of thing on his wrist, a metal band, which provides him some immunity from these things. Anyway, so he picks up his rifle, goes out and has a look. The claws retreat as he comes close, some of them stiffening into immobility. He touched his tab, so this is the thing on his wrist. Ivan would have given something for that. Short, hard radiation emitted from the tab neutralised the claws and put them out of commission. Even the big robot with its two waving eye stalks retreated respectively as he approached. So that's a bit weird. Okay, so this is sort of nuclear power stuff can do anything kind of thing again, because you'd have thought a short, hard radiation from the tab would not be something you really want to wear on your wrist for very, very long. So I'm not sure. So yeah, it's pretty gory actually. Yeah, but more so, he's not really. What's good here is he's leaving it to your imagination. All he basically says up there is there was not much left of the soldier. That's good. That's a good bit of writing again, because it's like just leave that with the reader to figure out what that looks like. It doesn't have to describe. It doesn't describe anything. What remained was being brought down the hillside by the host of claws. I mean, it's gross, but it's not. He's not doing the gore. That's in your brain, which is good writing. Okay. I like that. So Reed Terminator says Commander Cedar. After the film's release, science fiction writer Harlan Ellison argued that the movie was largely based on an episode of The Outer Limits Ellison had written called Soldier. Though details of the settlement were never disclosed, later releases of the Terminator include a credit acknowledging Ellison's influence. Okay, that's interesting. I'll have to go and look that one up. I don't think I've watched that. Anyway, so this Leon chap goes over the remains of the soldier, finds that there is a gloved hand, just the hand, closed tightly, and there's something in it. And then there's a sealed container made of aluminium, or aluminum, as the Americans say. Aluminum, which always makes me chuckle. So I don't know actually, because we say, of course, over here we say aluminium. You guys say aluminum without the I. Oddly enough, you have got a U, so I don't know what is it in Americans and taking random vowels out of things. I demand an explanation. I don't know. I don't know why. Yeah, it's just one of those weird things. Why is it that I'm glad you can mispronounce aluminium properly. So I don't know what it is with these words. Who decided? I mean, was it a British word first, and then it got changed by the Americans, or did the Americans invent aluminium first, and then we put an extra? I don't know what happened. Something happened somewhere along the line, didn't it? And we all decided, no, we're going to just say things very subtly differently, just to freak people out. Because it always cracks me up when they're doing it on Star Trek with the transparent aluminum. We're always going, no, you know what? Transparent aluminium, that would be, I'm guessing. Wintermute says that because the American spelling of aluminum is the original spelling. Is it? Okay, well that's interesting. Why did the British decide that it needed an extra I? Okay, so Humphrey Davy, the Cornish chemist who discovered the metal, called it aluminum after one of its source compounds, alum. Right, okay, so it was a British invention, which only the Americans are spelling correctly. Interesting. There we go. Well, that's got to make sense. I don't want to be sober. Anyway, whether it's aluminum or aluminium, it's still shiny. That's the main thing. Anyway, okay, so Tsar for the Americans, basically, for getting the spelling of aluminum right. So David was Welsh. Okay. Yep, I can't pronounce anything in Welsh. Okay, right. Anyway, so there's a little there's a metal cylinder, right, made of something. He puts it in his pocket, makes his way back to the bunker. Behind him, the claws come back to life. Okay, so this tab that he has with radiation coming out of it, which seems a bit of a curious thing, seems to immobilize these robots at point blank range. And the procession resumed. The metal spheres moving through the grey ash with their loads. You could hear the treads scrabbling against the ground. He had that. It was in his hand. Maybe we should take a look at it. Okay. And anyway, so what happens is basically it's got a message inside it. A small piece of silk paper carefully folded. And the message, I think this is what we've been waiting for. They certainly took their time about it. So they want to talk terms. We don't actually get the contents of the message other than that some sort of, they basically, presumably it's a kind of like surrender note, give us terms for your surrender. Are we going to go along with it? That's not for us to decide, Hendricks sounded. Where's the communications officer? I want the moon base. It's like, what? Okay, so there's a moon base as well. What's going on? So my brain is thinking, where the hell is this set? Because it's got this kind of Cold War vibe. But they've got a moon base as well. So I suppose in the 50s, the idea of a moon base in the future didn't sound all that implausible. I know we haven't got one even now, 70 years later, but back in the 50s I think it was not an unreasonable assumption that we might have a moon base in 20-30 years time. So it seems reasonable. So I'm thinking this story might be set in a sort of post-apocalyptic sort of 1970s 1980s maybe ish kind of era, but it doesn't date itself, so it's difficult to tell. Anyway, so there is a moon base. Okay, so it's sure strange they suddenly came around. We've been using the claws for almost a year. Okay, now all of a sudden they start to fold. Maybe the claws have been getting down to their bunkers. One of the big ones, the kind with stalks, got into an Ivan bunker last week, Eric said. Took a whole platoon of them down before they got their lid shut. Got the moon base, sir, says the comms officer. Anyway, so there's a guy on the moon, presumably. This is for Command L whistle. I don't know what that means. On Terra. Okay, presumably on Earth. Let me have General Thompson. What is it, Major? Says General Thompson, who's obviously got nothing else to do but other than running a moon base. The Russians want us to send a single officer on policy level over to their lines for a conference. They don't state the nature of the conference. They say matters of grave urgency make it advisable that the discussion be open between a representative of the UN forces, okay, and themselves. So it's not the US, it's the UN. So the United Nations has been at war with the Russians in some sort of sort of way, which is slightly alarming given where we are today. Anyway, what should we do? Send a man out. You don't think it's a trap? Well, it might be. Guy's disposable anyway. Anyway, so but the location they gave for the forward command is correct. It's worth a try at any rate. So I'll send an officer out and report the results back to you as soon as he returns. Okay, so that's it. So they've talked to the moon base. So yeah, dating this about 3 years' time. Yeah, exactly. I haven't been outside in months. I'll do it, says Hendricks. Anyway, the claw things have disappeared. The crabs are disappearing into the ash. That's the only thing that bothers me, Hendricks rubbing his wrist. I know I'm safe as long as I have this on me, but there's something about them. I hate the damn things. I wish we'd never invented them. There's something wrong with them. Relentless little M-dashes. If we haven't invented it, the Ivans would have. Well, anyhow, it seems to be winning the war. I guess that's good. So anyway, so it proceeds on like this a little bit as well. So he steps out into the grey rubble ground. So the landscape is dead, nothing stirred. You can see for miles endless ash and slag, ruins of buildings. So it's like a war. It is a total war zone. It's all been destroyed. The Russian lines were a few miles ahead of him. Now, what's interesting here is it's kind of got a sort of almost World War One vibe, where the Russian lines are like only a few miles away, and they're all in bunkers. But in 1950, it's kind of like we don't have front lines like that in warfare at this point. So it's an odd sort of construct of warfare where there's clearly motorized robots, as war machines, and yet they still seem to have lines of things going on. So it's a bit weird. It's not quite clear what sort of war they're finding here. It's sort of almost low tech but high tech. I keep seeing the future Terminator landscape when I read this, just devastation everywhere. It's like a battle for Bakhmut now, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to. It just struck me as slightly odd. Anyway, so then we get a little bit of lore about what's been going on. So Hendricks puts out a cigarette and hurried on. It was interesting, the use of artificial forms in warfare. How they got started? Well, it's necessity. The Soviet Union had gained great initial success, usual the side that got the war going. Okay, so the Soviet Union is being blamed here for starting the war. Most of North America had been blasted off the map. Sorry about that, guys. Boom. Retaliation was quick in coming, of course. Not quite sure from where. The sky was full of circling disc bombers. Okay, so it doesn't really elaborate on what a disc bomber might be, but some sort of stealth bomber, it would appear. The sky was full of circling disc bombers long before the war began. They'd been up there for years. The discs began sailing down all over Russia within hours after Washington got it. Okay, so Washington was gone. Making a note, don't give ChatGPT claws. Yes. So the American bloc governments moved to the moon base the first year. So in the years, the American bloc governments. So I'm not quite sure what it means by that, because North America no longer exists. There wasn't much else to do because Europe was gone as well. Okay, so you thought us Europeans were safe? Nah, we were gone too. A slag heap with dark weeds growing from the ashes and bones. Okay, so that sounds even worse. Most of North America was useless. Nothing could be planted. No one could live. A few million people kept going in Canada. Yay! Go Canada. And down in South America. Okay, so that's all that was left of the Americas. And during the second year, Soviet parachutists began to drop, a few at first and then more and more. They wore the first really effective anti-radiation equipment. So it's some sort of nuclear war, right? What was left of American production moved to the moon, along with all the governments. But all the remaining troops stayed behind as best they could. A few thousand here at Pluton Taylor. So there's not many people left on the Earth, you get the impression of this. Virtually everybody's been wiped out already. And the soldiers are hiding in ruins and sewers and cellars with the rats and the snakes. Great, yes, a good life. It looked as if the Soviet Union had the war almost won, except for a handful of projectiles fired off from the moon daily. There was almost no weapon in use against them. They came and went as they pleased. The war, for all practical purposes, was over. Nothing effective opposed them. But it feels like quite a Pyrrhic victory just for the Russians, because Europe is a wasteland, North America is a wasteland. Goodness knows what the state of the Soviet Union actually is as well, either. But then something changed. Then the first claws appeared, and overnight the complexion of the war changed. The claws were awkward at first, slow. The Ivans knocked them off almost as fast as they crawled out of their underground tunnels. But then they got better, faster, and more cunning. So these roboty things started to incrementally get better. Factories on Terra turned them out. Factories a long way underground behind the Soviet lines. So somehow they were underground behind in enemy territory. Factories that had once made atomic projectiles now almost have forgotten. The claws got faster and they got bigger. New types appeared, some with feelers, some that flew, and there were a few jumping kinds. The best technicians on the moon were working on designs, making them more and more intricate and more flexible. They became uncanny. And the Ivans were having a lot of trouble with them. Some of the claws were learning to hide themselves, burrowing down to the ash and lying in wait. So in this conflict, this wave of artificially intelligent robot killing machines basically has been unleashed, presumably by the UN, who are now camped out on the moon. Anyway, it seems to have turned the tide of the war, so that the Russians are now losing, and it's been 6 years apparently. So the automatic retaliation discs, which presumably are launched by Europe and America, spun down all over Russia, hundreds of thousands of them. Bacteria crystals and the Soviet guided missiles whistling through the air, chain bombs, now this, the robots. So it's been pretty apocalyptic basically. The world is totally trashed. But these claw things aren't like other weapons. They were alive from any practical standpoint. So there's an interesting thing. You could take that one about from a long time, couldn't you? That sentence. They were alive from any practical standpoint, whether the governments wanted to admit it or not. They were not machines. They were living things, spinning, creeping, shaking themselves up suddenly from the grey ash and darting towards the man, climbing up him, rushing for his throat. And they did their job well. Radiation tabs protected the UN troops, but if a man lost his tab, he was fair game for the claws, no matter what his uniform. And down below, the surface automatic machinery stamped them out. Human beings stayed a long way off. It was too risky. Nobody wanted to be around them. They were left to themselves. And they seemed to be doing all right. The new designs were faster, more complex, and more efficient. And apparently, they had won the war. So there we go. Anyway, so Hendricks is marching across a sort of no man's land, right, which has been blasted, heading towards the Russian lines, when he sees a small boy. The boy stood silently, looking at him. Small, not very old, maybe 8. Okay. Most of the kids who remained were stunted. He wore a faded blue sweater, ragged with dirt, short pants. His hair was long and matted, brown hair. What's that you've got? He's holding a toy bear. Okay. Classic kid in a war zone sort of thing. So chain bomb sounds quite interesting. Where do you live? In the ruins? Underground? Yes. How many of you are there? The boy doesn't answer. How do you stay alive? Well, there's food. What kind of food? Well, different. How old are you? He's 13. Anyway, so radiation exposure. The boy's very unhealthy look, etc., etc., etc. How do you get away from the claws? He's not sure. Doesn't really understand. Anyway, so there's the teddy bear. Anyway, so you better come with me, says Hendricks. And he walks along. What's your name? He eventually asks. David is the name of the boy. What happened to your mother and father? They died in the blast. How long ago? 6 years. You've been alone for 6 years. Anyway, so the boy's a bit strange. He's saying very little, withdrawn, quiet and stoic. But he's seen this before. A strange fatalism grabs them. Nothing ever comes as a surprise. They just accept anything that comes along. What are you waiting for? To catch things to eat. Where are we going? Says the boy. We're going to the Russian lines. The Russians, the enemy. I'm an American, Hendricks said. There was no comment from the boy. Anyway, so they keep going for a while. And the boy doesn't want to eat any food. So some little clues emerging here for the for the astute as to what's going on. The boy is a bit strange, but the world's a bit strange. So anyway, so Hendrix eats his food and downs it with some coffee, and they keep going. It keeps going for a while. So anyway, so Hendrix eventually slows down. I think he must be getting close to the Russian lines by now. Are we almost there? David asks. Almost. Why have we stopped? Well, I don't want to take any chances. He says, so keep up with me and don't drop behind. So he's basically getting cautious as he gets close to the Russian lines, which kind of makes sense. And then a tall figure out on the ridge above him appears. Okay, grey-green cloak. It's definitely a Russian. And behind him, a second soldier appears, another Russian. Both lifted their guns, aiming. And Hendrix freezes. Okay, kind of like, okay, Russians. He opens his mouth. The soldiers were kneeling, sighting down the side of the slope. A third figure had joined them on the ridgetop, a smaller figure in grey-green, a woman. She stood behind the other two. Hendrix found his voice. Stop! He waved frantically. And then there's a bang or pop. Okay. Nice that lad says, are we there yet? Are we nearly there yet? Are we there yet? Shut up in the backseat. Anyway, so, something's fired at him. Waves of heat lapped against him, throwing him to the ground, ash toward his face, grinding into his eyes and nose. Choking, he pulled himself to his knees. It was all a trap. He was finished. He'd come to be killed. Okay, so he gets his rifle up and took aim. It weighed 1,000 tons. He could barely hold it. So he's, don't fire, says the Russian in heavily accented English, which I can't do. Put down your rifle, Yank. He'd been caught and they'd blasted the boy. They've shot the boy. Ooh. He turned around. David was gone. What remained of him was strewn across the ground. Why did you do it? He murmured. The boy. Why? One of the soldiers helped him roughly feet. Look. Look. And the two Russians pulled him forward. See, hurry up. There isn't much time to spare, Yank. Do you now understand? Bum, bum, bum. Scene change. From the remains of David, a metal wheel rolled. Relays, glinting metal, parts, wiring. One of the Russians kicked at the heap of remains. Parts popped out, rolling away. Wheels and springs and rods. quite low tech, but kind of, I suppose, 1950s robotic stuff, right? A plastic section fell in, half charred. Hendrix bent down shakily. The front of the head had come off. He could make out the intricate brain, wires, relays, tiny tubes. Those vacuum tubes we were talking about the other week. Switches and thousands of minute studs. A robot. We watched it tagging you. Tagging me? That's the way they tag along with you into the bunker. That's how they get in. But, so Hendrix clearly doesn't know about this. Come on. We can't stay here. It isn't safe. There must be hundreds of them all around here. The forward command, Hendrix muttered. I came to negotiate with the Soviets. There is no more forward command. They got in. We'll explain. So it sounds like these guys are just the only survivors, right? Tiny tubes, yeah. This way. Get down this way. The woman unscrewed lid. And they're basically in another bunker, in a Russian bunker. So, and the woman wants a cigarette straight away. I'm Corporal Rudy Maxa, Polish, impressed in the Soviet army 2 years ago. And then so they introduce each other. Anyway, so Epstein, one of the guys in Klaus Epstein, Austrian, with Rudy and Tasso. So Tasso is the woman, I think. Basically say, yeah, that's a new machine disguised as a boy with a teddy bear, and he says that's one of the new types. One of them? What, you mean there's more than one? He said, yeah, the little boy David holding his teddy bear. That's variety 3, the most effective. Well, what are the other types? Here, look for yourself. This is why we wanted to talk to you. We found that your claws begin to make up new designs on their own. New types of their own, better types, down in your underground factories behind our lines. You let them stamp themselves, repair themselves, made them more and more intricate. It's your fault this has happened. So basically they're saying, the Russians are basically saying, look, okay, all's fair in love and war, right? But your creatures are now out of control. They're making new versions of themselves and they're getting better at it. So he looks at some photos, right? David walking along the road by himself, David and another David, 3 Davids, all exactly alike, each with a ragged teddy bear. Then they see a wounded soldier. That's an alternative version. That's variety 1, the wounded shoulder. You see, the claws were designed to get human beings, he explains. and each kind was better than the last, and they got further, closer, past most of our defences into our lines. But all the time they were machines. They were easy to spot. So Variety 1 subverted our whole north wing, Rudy said. Nobody figured out what was going on straight away. This thing got in, and then it started murdering everybody. And then Variety 3, David and his bear, that worked even better. Soldiers are suckers for children. We brought them in and tried to feed them. We found out the hard way what they were after. At least those who were in the bunker. 3 of us were lucky. We were visiting Tassa when it happened. This is her place. And it's going along with all the lines. Yes. But what about our lines? Can they? And then this is another clincher here. Okay, they're not bothered by your radiation tabs. Makes no difference to them. Russian, American, Pole, German, it's all the same. They're doing what they were designed to do, carrying out the original idea. They track down life wherever they find it. They go by warmth, Klaus said. It's the way you constructed them from the very start. Of course, those you designed were kept back by the radiation tabs you wear, but they've got around that. These new varieties are lead-lined, which is a bit of wacky bit of science, really, but it kind of makes sense in the context of the novel. So what's the other variety? The David type, the wounded soldier. They don't know what the other type is. Okay. On the wall were 2 metal plates. The left one came off a wounded soldier. We got one of them. It was going along towards our bunker. We got it from the ridge. Same way we got David tagging you. And the plate is stamped IV, i.e. 1-5 in Roman numerals. Why the robots are using Roman numerals? I have no idea, but anyway. And this came from the David type, and the plate is stamped 3-5. You can see what we're up against. There's another type. Maybe it was abandoned, maybe it didn't work, but there must be, and this is the title of the book, a second variety, because here's 1 and 3, so there must be a type 2 somewhere. So David tagged you all the way here and never touched you. Probably thought you'd get it into a bunker somewhere. Once one gets in, it's all over, Klaus said. They move fast. One lets all the rest inside. They're inflexible. Machines with a purpose. They're built only for one thing. So at this point, the girl wants another cigarette. Anyway, everybody else is dead, Dave. these creatures have wiped, these robots have wiped out everything else. So basically now there's Klaus, Rudy, Tasso and Hendrix in this bunker, and they're basically chatting about things. Well, there must be another one outright. So can you operate the transmitter? Well, no, I can't, but you're going to try and contact the moon base and tell them about this. The new types of variety claws were completely at their mercy, aren't we? And they've probably gotten into the UN lines too. It makes me wonder if we're not seeing the beginning of a new species, the new species of evolution, the race to come after man. Bum, bum, bum. So they're not a race, they're mechanical killers. You made them to destroy, and that's all they can do, machines with a job. So anyway, so he tries to get through to the moon base. He tries to get through to his base back across a few miles that he's walked. He can't get through to them. Maybe because of the radiation, maybe not, they're not sure. Anyways, they all go back down again. And then the moon base, what have they got to the moon base? They couldn't have got to the moon base. How would they get there? It isn't possible. Okay, because we've heard rumours but nothing different. What's the actual situation? So Hendrix is a bit free with his information here, I think. He basically said, oh yeah, we're supplied from the moon. That's where all the governments are, under the lunar surface, all our people and industries, that's what keeps us going. If they find some way of getting off Terra onto the moon, he does trust these Russian guys quite fast, I think. But so there we go. It only takes one of them. Once the first one gets in, it emits all the others, hundreds of them all alike. You should have seen them, identical like ants. Perfect socialism, Tasso says. Quite insightful commentary there. That's enough. Well, what next? So anyway, they can't stay there forever because they don't have enough food and supplies. So it's pretty grim, basically. So they think about how about getting back to the original command bunker. It's about 3 or 4 miles. But there's 4 of them and they've got some ammo, so maybe they can make it. But they don't know if they might already be there. What do you think the chances are? They're already in the American lines. It's hard to say. They're pretty organised and they know exactly what they're doing. So I'm not quite sure what this image is for, but we'll find out. Have you got any American cigarettes left? She seems completely obsessed by cigarettes. Anyway, so no more cigarettes. She's actually genuinely a Russian, so she says. This used to be France. This was part of Normandy. So at least that tells us where we are. We're in Normandy. Anyway, so she's taken off her coat. She's young, about 20, slim. So large and dark eyes. So she's nice. Anyway, apparently she's only 18. How were you when you came here? I was only 16. So so she's pretty young. Anyway, anyway, she starts flirting with him actually here. So there's going to be a problem. There's 4 of us here. It's going to be hard to live in these quarters. Are there just the 2 rooms? She made herself comfortable on the cot, unbuttoning her shirt, as they do. Sure, you have no more cigarettes. Too bad. So anyway, she's off to sleep. And then Klaus turns up with Rudy at gunpoint. Quiet, Major. Come over here and get your gun. Get your gun out. What is this? Cover him. Beside me. Hurry. So he's gone insane. Stop him. Rudy's voice. Anyway, Klaus's fingers eventually tighten around the gun butt. We didn't know before, but now we know. And he shoots Rudy. Major, this is the second variety. What did you do? So Klaus turns round. It's the second variety. It's her. And then they look down the sort of blackened, smoking remains of fragments and bits of cloth. You killed him. And then they find out that Rudy actually was made of flesh and blood. Yeah, and he doesn't pull any punches this one. Seared flesh, charred bone fragments, bits of a skull, ligaments, viscera, blood forming a pool against the wall. Okay, so no wheels, Tasso said. He's not the second variety. Oops, got the wrong guy. You're going to have to be able to explain this. Why did you do it? Why did you kill him? He was frightened. The whole building thing around us. So it's not quite sure what Klaus. Where's Klaus actually gone? Klaus sat down at the table. All the colour draining suddenly from his face. Okay, so he's kind of gone into a bit of a fugue. Maybe Rudy learned something about what? About him? About Klaus? Klaus looks up. Yeah, she's misleading you, Hendrix. She thinks I'm the second variety. Why did you kill him then? I told you. I thought he was a claw. And he was suspicious. Anyway, so this goes on to kind of for a while, trying to figure out who's actually who might be a claw or not. So anyway, so he's now scared that Tasso wants to kill him. Hedrick sort of tries to take charge. Right, there's going to be no more killing. Anyway, they can't get through to his base. Then he eventually does and gets hold of Scott back at his base. You got my message. Is everything all right at the bunker? None of them got in. Everything is all right. The voices we can know. He thinks they're all right. And then suddenly it fades out again. So it's a bit uncertain as to what's going on as well. So it goes on for like this for a little bit. They're basically debating for a long time as to what they should basically do. And then they decide to head off early in the morning to get back to the bunker. So then they sort of go off. So Klaus falls in behind them. Tasso walks behind her, pistol hurtedly. Major, I've been meaning to ask you something. How did you run across the David, the one that was tagging you? I met it along the way in some rooms. What did it say? It said it was alone by itself. You couldn't tell it was a machine. It talked like a living person. You never suspected. It didn't say much. I noticed nothing unusual. It's strange. Machines so much like people, you can be fooled, almost alive. I wonder where it'll end. So it's again quite prescient for a 1953 novel. It's like, okay, where's it going to end? Machines that can talk like humans. They're doing what you Yanks designed them to do, Tasso said. You designed them to hunt out life and destroy human life wherever they find it. That's what they're doing. And then Klaus, Tasso basically tells Hendrix that Klaus thinks he's the second variety. Anyway, so there's lots of misdirection going on here. They're not paranoid if they really are after you. It's a good story. I mean, it keeps you going. What the hell's who the hell is any of these guys going to be the second variety, or is there something else about to happen? How do you know so much about the claws? Hendrik said. So Tasso basically said, I've seen them. I've observed them. You know quite a lot. Actually, you saw very little. Strange that you should have been such an acute observer. And then Tasso laughs at him. Well, you think I'm the second variety? And it's like, let's just go on with this, shall we? Anyway, eventually they get to back to the command bunker, and Hendrik says, "Look, I'll go first because I've got a tab, and we'll see how it goes." Let's get started. So they go in. And there's a pile of bricks, but there's nothing there. Nothing. I'm starting round about you. Where are you? Are you picking me up? And then he gets a response from his previous buddies, but the voice is cold and neutral. He couldn't identify it. I'm giving an order. Silence. And he basically says, "Come up. I want to talk to you." And then they won't respond. Let me talk to Leone. This is Leone. Same kind of hold, card, thin voice. Hendrix, I'm on the surface at the buggy. I want you to come down here. Come down. Why? I'm giving you an order. And then they won't respond. So Hendrix is kind of like, something should be awry here. Antenna should be twitching very much at this point. Anyway, two Davids came up at him. Their faces identical in expression, and he blasted them into pieces. And then more and more Davids are coming out, clutching their teddy bears. And you can basically mention this as a TV show, blowing all these kids away with teddy bears with assault rifles and stuff. So then the first variety appears, the wounded shoulders. They get blown away as well. So it would be quite a disturbing thing to watch, I think, this, if it was turned into a TV show. Anyway, more Davids, and it gets blown to pieces as well. The bear and the David both destroyed. Anyway, so they managed to get to another ruined building, and Tasso has a bomb, so she throws the bomb, which blows a bunch of two wounded soldiers, and the bomb goes off and blows them all to pieces. So Klaus is caught in the explosion as well. So it's basically just Tasso and Hendrix left. You left him back there on purpose. So you're kind of making the assumption here that Klaus was the second variety. Anyway, so then they're just about to they're trying to simulate all this battle stuff when a figure appears, and it's Klaus. And Hendrix stood up. Klaus, how the hell did you? And Tasso blows him away. He exploded, gears and wheels flying. So, it was Klaus after all. So Klaus was the second variety. And he swayed back and forth, crashed to the ground, arms flung out, a few more wheels rode away, so silence. Now you understand why he killed Rudy. So this is quite good. So at this point you're going, okay, so there was a variety 1, which was David with the teddy bear. Sorry, variety 1 was the wounded soldier. Variety 3 was David with the teddy bear. Variety 2, you're assuming at this point, is Klaus, because Klaus has just been blown up and he's just clearly a robot as well. Tasso turned to Hendrix. Now you understand why he killed Rudy, which kind of makes sense because he would have been trying to cover up things. Anyway, so Hendrix has been injured now by all this sort of stuff. So he was a second variety, Hendrix muckered. I'd always thought so, Tasso says. So why didn't you destroy him sooner? Well, you held me back, she says. The concussion bomb put most of them out of action. They're pretty delicate. How did you have that bomb like that, says Hendricks. Well, we designed it. You wouldn't underestimate our technology, Major. Without such a bomb, you and I would no longer exist. And so it appears Tasso has saved Hendricks from the from these sort of things. So you're kind of going, okay, so hang on, we're not quite at the end of the story yet then. So what's going to happen? How do you feel? Anyway, she's damaged. He's injured. If I hadn't dragged you away, they would have got you, etc., etc., etc. We can't live here. The moment their reinforcements come back, we're dead. We've got maybe 3 hours before they come. And you expect me to get us away? Well, who else is going to get us away, basically? So, can you get us to the moon base, she says. The moon base? How? Well, there must be a way. Hendrik sort of shakes his head. Then this is a bit contrived, this bit, I thought, but it kind of gets you to the end of the story. There's supposed to be a ship near here. I've never seen it, but I know it exists. What kind of a ship? Her voice was sharp. It's a rocket cruiser. Will it take us off to the moon base? It's supposed to in an emergency. But Hendricks is a bit doozy and a bit bewildered. Anyway, so eventually Hendricks is kind of coming back to his sensibilities and say, look, can we find this rocket ship before the murder robots come and get us? And they're both pretty suspicious of each other. Anyway, so they stumble across and they end up in this village. There's a heavy duty battle tank that's been blown to pieces. And then there, Hendricks said he recognises the place where this rocket ship is supposed to be. And they're standing on it. And it's presumably some sort of missile silo or something. Anyway, he manages to get the thing though, and they step back. The metal frame pushed slowly up through the ash, shoving bricks and weeds out of the way. The action ceased as the ship nosed into view. There it is. I'm not accustomed to rocket piloting, says Tasso. So I don't know how to fly a ship. Don't worry, I can do it. But there's only one seat. It's only supposed to carry a single person. I see, he said slowly, and that one person is you. Of course, why? Well, you can't go. You might not live through the trip. You're injured. You probably wouldn't get there. An interesting point, says Hendricks. But you see, I know where the moon base is and you don't. You might fly around for months and not find it. It's well hidden without knowing what to look for. But I'll have to take my chances, Major. Maybe I won't find it by myself, but I think you'll give me all the information I need because your life depends on it. How? Because if I find the moon base in time, perhaps I can get them to send a ship back to pick you up. So this bit's all a bit contrived, I think. If I find the base in time, if not, then you don't have a chance. I imagine there are supplies on the ship. They'll last me long enough. But anyway, so Hendricks is more injured than he kind of appears. Anyway, so rather than keep negotiating with him, Tasso basically whacks him over the head. And basically forces the point. So where is the moon base, she demands. Amongst the something moved, something in the ash. Tasso turned quickly, aiming, and she fired, and a puff of flame leaped. So she's still shooting the incoming robots. It won't be long. Will you bring them back here to get me? Yes, as soon as possible, she promises. Are you telling the truth? Will you come back for me? You'll get me to the moon base. I will get you to the moon base, but tell me where it is. There's only a little time left. All right. Hendricks picks up a piece of rock. Watch. And he scratches in the ash and sketches out a crude lunar map, as you do with a rock, This is the Apennine Range. Here's the crater of Archimedes. The moon base is beyond the end of the Apennine, to about 200 miles. So there's a bit of lunar geography there, which is quite good. When you're over the Apennine, signal with one red flare and a green flare, followed by 2 red flares in quick succession. The base monitor will record your signal. The base is under the surface, but they'll guide you down with magnetic grapples. The rest of the stuff is pretty much automatic. Don't go far from this location, she says. It'll be hard to find you as well. A beautiful ship, Major, she says. Well built. I admire your workmanship. You people have always done good work. You build fine things. Your work, your creations are the greatest achievement, she says. Warning bells, warning bells. Give me the pistol. She tosses it to him, says goodbye. And then eventually she gets in the ship, and the ship takes off. Something, as the ship's taken off, something is something lay ahead, stretched out on the ground, silent and unmoving. So he pulls out his gun. It was the remains of Klaus, the second variety, where Tasso had blasted him. He could see wheels and relays and metal parts strewn around on the ash, glittering and sparkling in the sunlight. He could see the metal hull, aluminium ribs and struts. More wiring fell out. And he bent down. The brain cage had been smashed by the fall. The artificial brain was visible. He gazed at it, a mass of circuits. Miniature tubes, wires as fine as hair. He touched the brain cage. It swung inside. The type plate was visible, and he studied the plate and blanched, because it says 4 of 4. For a long time he stared at the plate. 4th variety, not the second variety. They had been wrong. There were more types, not just 3, perhaps more, perhaps many more, at least 4. And Klaus wasn't the second variety. But if Klaus wasn't the second variety, bam, bam, bam. Anyway, the first was a David, so these figures start coming towards him. Then a second David, then the third. 3 Davids all alike. The first 2 Davids dissolved into particles because he shoots them. The third came on, the figure behind it, a wounded soldier, and then behind the wounded soldier came 2 Tassos. Oh no, the girl was the robot as well. Anyway, so he starts shooting. He'd given her the ship and the signal code. Because of him, she was on her way to the moon and the moon base. He had made it possible. He'd been right about the bomb. After all, it had been designed with knowledge of the other types, not the David type and the wounded soldier type and the Klaus type, not designed by human beings. It had been designed by one of the underground factories apart from all human contact. The line of Tassos came up to him. Hendricks braced himself, watching them calmly. The familiar face, the belt, the heavy shirt, the bomb. The bomb. And the Tassos reached for him. The last ironic thought that drifted through Hendricks' mind. He felt a little better, thinking about it. The bomb, made by the second variety, to destroy all the other varieties. Made for that end alone. They were beginning to design weapons to use against each other. Drop mic. So the robots got so advanced they decided to start killing themselves as well. So humanity taught them well, basically. I thought it's like so it was a contrived twist with the rocket ship at the end. That was I thought a bit weak, but a good tweak at the end of the story, I thought. So was it a bit predictable? Yes, but it had an extra twist in it. It had like a double twist, which I thought was quite good. So you've got the twist, whereas you think you're fighting the Russians. It turns out you're not fighting the Russians. You're fighting the robots, and then you're not quite sure who might be a robot because there's clearly a missing variety that you haven't managed to encounter. And then it turns, then obviously he gets betrayed by Tasso, and Tasso is the robot. And then, of course, then there's this little realization, this extra little twist at the end, that the robots have actually turned on themselves and are building better versions of themselves to go and deal with previous versions of themselves. So it's just constant carnage. So I thought it was a really good story, actually. I did enjoy it. The ending, yes, it's a bit predictable, but I mean, this is written in the 50s, so this kind of story has been done to death by now, isn't it? So looking at it in the year 2023, 70 years later, I think it's quite hard to criticise it for being a bit predictable, but it's good. It was written well. It's a very good show don't tell example, because it doesn't tell us anything. It just allows us to pick sorts of stuff up. So it's very, very good. And then exactly, Frank Miner, the overarching thought. So is there any difference between the robots and the humans? Because the robots have been fighting each other. The humans have been fighting each other. Then they use robots to, one side of the humans use robots to kill the other humans more effectively. And then what ultimately happens is the robots start arming themselves to deal with the other robots. So it's like, it's just self-perpetuating warfare. So I thought it was good. Commander Hubris says the only thing which I thought was predictable was the unknown second robot variety that I immediately guessed was. I figured the woman was trying a little bit hard to be normal with the cigarette thing, so I kind of was very suspicious of her to start with. First time chat from Rebellion Radio. Sorry, I'm late. No worries. No, welcome to the stream. But yeah, I thought it was a really good story. So I'm with Lucky Luigi. I thought it was good. This is I enjoyed this more than Frederick Paul's one from last week, because I suppose it's a bit more action focused. So it was the lack of empathy from the robots and all that sort of stuff. I suspect when it was first published, it wasn't at all predictable. Well, no, because all this sort. I mean, we've had 70 years of getting used to the idea of computers and robots and AI and all those sort of things, haven't we? Reading this in the 50s must have been quite terrifying, actually, because somebody, oh my God, what happens if robots do get out of out of control and go berserk, murder people? Because I mean, back in the 50s, nobody was quite sure how this technology was going to evolve. This is pre-microchip, remember? Transistors were just about to come on. When was a transistor invented? It's somewhere around this point, isn't it? Because you're still talking about vacuum tubes in the story. Isn't Tasso a name of a coffee machine? I think it's the Tassimo. Yeah. I thought it was really good. So again, I'm gonna Philip K. Dick. That is a definite plus. We need to read some more of his stuff, so that's kind of good. Yeah, we've all seen Terminator and Battlestar Galactica, right? So with all that sort of stuff, which is draws its inspiration from stories like this, I guess. And things like the Borg and things from Star Trek. They all can tie back these kind of ideas, can't we? The machines getting too clever and overwhelming things. Commander Hope Hoopers, you have a suggestion for next week, revered leader Drew. Go on then, back your suggestion in the chat, my friend. And 7 to 9, all those kind of things. I always thought it was a bit scary that Philip K. Dick could write this well because he was quite mad. I mean, it's a good story. There are 5 volumes of short stories, so there's a bunch of stuff. So anyway, what's Commander Hope Hooper's got as a suggestion? Let's whack that in for next week, and we must do an AI session as well. I think that would be quite good fun. That quite good. The first bipolar junction transistors were invented by Bell Labs in 1948. So they were just be coming into the scene in the 1950s. Yeah. I remember my dad talking about the invention of transistors because he said there was a whole generation of electronics engineers that he knew of as a young man who were suddenly completely overwhelmed by the introduction of the transistor and the microprocessor, and just their entire skill set disappeared almost overnight because they were the vacuum tube generation. Another salutatory lesson there, really. It's on the Gutenberg website, Robert E. Howard. Okay, let's go have a look. So anyway, in terms of, I think, a score for that book, I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10, which I think is the highest mark I've given so far, because I just thought it was well written. I think there was a bit of contrived stuff at the end with the rocket ship, which I thought was a bit weak. But other than that, I thought it was really engaging. I kind of sat through it and went, oh, this is good. Oh, that's the end of the story. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 because it was a good yarn. It's a proper sci-fi yarn. And it had that whole AI thing. I think bonus points really, because talking about AI and robotics taking over the world and becoming things, it's just like strangely prescient 70 years later. So there we go. The story was used as a basis for the 1995 film Screamers. Wow, okay. I listened to Radio Caroline. Yes. Oh, wow, Radio Caroline. Bang, bang, bang. Robert E. Howard. Okay, let's go and look at that one there. Robert E. Howard. The Jewel of Gawalur. Where's that? Oh, there we go. Jewels of Gawalur. Okay. I don't know this one at all, so that's good. So is this a sci-fi one, or is this more of a fantasy novel? Difficult to tell from weird tales. We'll find out. It's fantasy, not sci-fi. Okay, well, we do fantasy on here as well. So we've been doing quite a bit of sci-fi. Let's swap to a fantasy novel then. Let's see what this one's all about. Again, a relatively short read, so we should be able to do that. 125 kilobytes is not very much, so we should all be quite good for that sort of thing. I think that'd be quite good fun. So congratulations to Philip K. Dick for getting the highest score on the Drew Wager's Old Sci-Fi Masters critique show. A classic book cover. It is a bit of a classic book cover, isn't it? But let's go for that then. Let's go for Jewels of, I don't know how you pronounce that, Gaiwalur. by Robert E. Howard. We'll choose that one for next week. So read on, my friends, and we'll see what that should be quite good fun. This book's got lots of free audio book listens on YouTube as well. So yeah, so that's another bonus thing. If you have, if you're traveling a lot and you can just find the YouTube thing, just go and listen to the audiobook. That's just as good. So okay. So how old was Robert E. Howard when he wrote this then? So he was a young author, was he? That's interesting as well. Interesting. Early 20s. Wow. Okay. Well, it's going to be interesting to read something about that. So fire that one up for next week, my friends. I hope you have enjoyed the stream tonight. Be good. Look after yourselves this week, as per usual. I've actually got to go up into London tomorrow. So for the first time in ages, I've got to go to a conference, which could be jolly exciting. So we'll see how it goes. But yes, okay, so next week, Jaws of Gaia by Robert E. Howard, part of the Weird Tales. There's the hands. Enjoy yourself, my friends, and congratulations to Philip K. Dick. That was an excellent story. And just, if you just see any dodgy humans out there, maybe just blow them away, just with a shotgun, just in case. If any wheels pop out, you're on the right. You're on the right track. That's not disclaimers applied to the stream, as you know. Be good, look after yourselves. I will see you for more writing stuff next week. And Thursdays is I think more Spaceborne 2. Fridays is more Star Citizen, and Saturdays is the new well, not new, but Wintermute's recommendation actually, which is really good. The Descent, Free Space, Descent, something else, Victory, Great War, Descent, Space, Free Space, something game that we've started playing, so that's going to be good. Poke about in the golf for some wheels, exactly right. Be good, my friends, take it easy, see you soon, and have a good week. Bye bye now.